start. The truth about Mythic, Bellular clips.
And now for our next thing then, some game-related things in this week in World of Warcraft. Right, there's a tribute to the Windrunners that has been added in 925. It's where this mysterious piece of highborn music comes from. Basically, there are some family mementos that are just sitting around in the spire, and if you click on the harp, it does indeed play that music. You see a this like nice little.
Oh, this is the Sylvanas, the Windrunners.
Codex is who broke this one.
Yeah, very who broke the story, not broke this.
Oh, broke the game.
Yeah. This is very Lament of the Highborn vibes, which I think is very, very nice content. I guess it's just the thing of, it's your in a world where all of the other problems didn't exist, this would be a super nice touch. Yeah. As it is a super nice touch, but one that people will go, oh yeah, please, more Sylvanas lore, woohoo.
Yeah, but they need to carry it through. Them finally doing the Lyra.
That is pretty cool though. Not gonna lie, that is a nice touch. Because it actually has a lot of story. Like I think this reaches all the way. Reaches all the way before Warcraft 3 technically, but this reaches like to classic really. More like to TBC, but yeah.
That stuff, it's like good, makes sense.
Pretty cool.
If only you're right. If only all of this had been dealt with better in game,
it
seemed like this could have a lot more impact. But I think for people who follow that character, read the novel, did all that stuff, and then go here, it'll probably be a nice little moment for them. Yeah. So look, it's just nice to see more things like this. This is the sorts of things we
want to
see them do more in the game. So when we see them do it, it's like, okay, yeah, some people might be tired of Windrunner stuff.
I don't know.
Thing for them to be doing.
I'm totally fine with them actually like having more of the Windrunner stuff. I mean, let's be real. What's her name? Verisa? Sylvanas is the second oldest, yeah. So Verisa is the youngest. We barely hear about her at all. And I know she has 2 kids that look like they shouldn't be fucking like alive. Fucking great, scary kids. But I would love more family drama from these 3 for sure. Dude, like when Valera came back, she barely had any interaction with Sylvanas. It kind of sucks. Bro, 10,000 years. Yeah, fuck.
Right, so it's the right thing. Definitely does get the praise. Next then. It's like every week we come here, there's even more sepulcher nerfs. It's crazy.
Yeah, no shit.
I was getting ready to just go into hyper rage mode about this again. I did that last week, never mind.
No, yeah. Look, so what can we learn from this, everyone? Pretty simple. This raid is not hitting their targets.
Nope.
In terms of player success. Now there's
not hitting the targets because also less people wanna bother with it. Anyone who's been doing Mythic for a while and has the skills might not be doing, a lot of them are not doing Mythic anymore because they realize how useless it is to do it overall, right? And a lot of people left, a lot of people have a hard time to find, but and the people who wanna try or new to the scene are gonna have a really hard time going into Mythic if this is their first time doing Mythic raids, because they keep making mechanics way too fucking punishing, way too annoying. By punishing I mean if you make a mistake you die, I'm fine with that. If you make a mistake and the raid dies, not so much,
There's a few different reasons. Some of that could be the raid, some of that could be aspects of gearing, but thinking about that,
not gearing.
Pieces. We have so much stuff, right? So evidently some things in balancing did miss the mark. This is something I kind of ad-libbed on in the WoW news video that comes out tomorrow, but
you know what missed the mark? Too many one-shot mechanics for raids. Too many raid-wide one-shot mechanics where you can be as geared, you can be geared with shit from the next expansion. You'll still die in one shot. It's not fun.
But I wonder, do they have a situation now where the delta between the average Mythic Raider and the Race to World First competitor is now higher than it ever has been?
Oh, probably.
Not really because of those players themselves. Some of that, but because of the immense...
and don't forget, this was also the longest World First race in forever, I believe. Like, it's definitely for this expansion. I think Castle Nathria was 2 weeks. Sylvanas was 2 weeks, I believe. No, Sylvanas was like 1 week, I think. Like on the first week, on the last day, they got Sylvanas, I think, something like that. So it's like, this is not even close. It's fucking 4
optimization
weeks, a month,
that
basically. Yeah,
that are
fuck.
going on, right? And maybe that means that where in the past they could do Mythic and then nerf it a bit after the race, it's like maybe
Why?
now it needs even more.
That's why. Why would you nerf it on race? Okay, like, let's say this. The guys who are doing Mythic World First have a lot less gear than people who are doing a lot less gear overall. By like average, I would say probably 10, maybe 13 item levels lower than the people who are doing Mythic now. And tier sets. Because I'm pretty sure not the whole, 4 weeks in, probably the whole raid had the 4 set. But like, let's do this. Let's take Sylvanas into example. Let's take Chains of Domination as an example. In Chains of Domination, there's no way that the whole raid had the best in slot and highest shard of domination for their class. And they were about 10 to 13 item levels lower than what Mythic Raiders were during mid-prog for, let's say, a few months into Chains of Domination. That being the case, they still couldn't, like, a lot of people still didn't get cutting edge. Why? Well, clearly they're way worse players than the world first raiders, and the gear can't even like fix it. Like, the gear is not enough in that regard, which is like, just think about like the skill difference between world first and less item level and less set or shard bonuses or whatever the system is at that point. The difference in skill is almost equivalent to like 25 to 30 item levels, basically. That's fucked up. That is like 2 raid tiers of difference in gear. That's just how much their skill plays into clearing world first.
More nerfs than a raid would have previously, or something like that, and they have to be conservative with nerfs because they nerf it way too much. They can't really then make it harder. Like, they can make it harder again, but that's not the ideal way to do it.
Yeah.
So like, it does kind of suck that there's a moving goalposts feel for some of the people doing Mythic. But look, ultimately, I think there's just something to be said about like what's the participation in the Mythic game
That
mode.
too.
Certainly, we had a few questions
big
about
one.
that when last week we saw that. It wasn't 2 weeks ago, but there was
Midwinter in Pieces.
Yeah, what?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were
Oh
talking
yeah,
about
Midwinter in Pieces went, but
Yeah.
also the Hall of Fame was
Yeah.
filled by the Horde, and when the Horde filled it with 100 guilds getting a kill, the Alliance had 9.
Yeah, and apparently, according to KW, there's only 14 Alliance guilds in the Hall of Fame right now.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Nice. 5 more.
Good luck if you want cross
50% more.
factions of Val.
Yeah, it's not going to happen unless they flick the button.
Or cross realm.
Yeah, so there's
Wow.
so Sam Pritchard said, is it not meeting the target because less people are playing, or is it that much harder? And I think it's, as we were talking about last week, I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah,
probably.
It's like, yep, you definitely need to make this game differently if you want loads of people to do Mythic. Differently is a very big category of what you could do, but you definitely need to move somewhere in there.
I guess the question for the Mythic Raiders is, do you think the mode is like functional with its dual purpose of being a, like, the Race to World First is an unofficial competition, but Blizzard stay in the office to monitor it and do bug fixes and shit, so it does have official support.
Yeah,
you may as well say that it's an officially supported game mode. Ultimately, from Blizzard's perspective, it's not really that. It's just that these are the first people doing their raid, therefore they do not fix any issues that pop up.
Problem Mythic rating is it rewards the best gear, but in order to clear the Mythic rating, you will have shittier gear. It's like, why do you need? And this is like outside of like world first raiders, right? Because like they also have a certain comp that like to deal with certain mechanics. They have multiple alts though to deal with certain mechanics and composition, stuff like that. The regular rating should not require certain like team composition in order to clear mechanics. Not regular, like regular mythic. And technically it doesn't, but the problem is by the time that it doesn't, you're already outgearing the boss. It's like, why would I even do mythic raid for the gear if I already have the gear? That makes no sense. It's like you're on the 9th boss, it drops a weapon. You get a weapon from Mythic Plus. You get a weapon from PvP, right? Is it hard? Yeah, okay. Like, it's hard to get the weapon from PvP, sure. But it's like for Mythic Plus, you can get the weapon from your vault, right? So it's like, if you need the gear to clear the Mythic raid, but the Mythic raid drops the gear, that makes no fucking sense. Heroic gear should be heroic gear should be enough to clear Mythic raid. Normal gear should be enough to clear heroic. The skill is what makes the difference. Like, if you're farming normal, you should be able to do heroic with the gear you get. If you're farming heroic, you should be able to kill Mythic with the gear you get. There's no point doing Mythic raid to get gear, because once you the whole achievement in the Mythic raid is to kill the Mythic raid, not the gear. The gear is a bonus, right? And again, if your goal is the gear, you have other ways to get it, right? It's like, for me, the goal was the gear. That's why I stopped caring about Mythic raiding. Like, well, I just want gear. I don't give a shit about cutting edge. So us being stuck on, let's say at that time was generals for fucking 2 months, to not even have time to kill Denathrius. I First of all, I didn't care that we didn't kill Denathrius, but I did care that for those 2 months I got no gear because we were stuck on generals. And when we killed generals, I also didn't receive loot, right? It's like, it made no sense to me for me to like do that at all. So I was like, fuck yeah, I'm down with Mythic raiding. It makes absolutely no sense.
But I don't know. Is the Mythic difficulty working? I'm not sure.
I
No,
would.
I mean, I
Yeah.
don't mean that. I mean,
I
that
am like, the more time passes, the more I believe that Mythic raiding should just be transmogs and like collectibles. Everything else, like gear wise, should be heroic, and that's it.
literally, I'm not sure.
Mythic
Yeah.
plus gear should get nerfed down. Vault should reward heroic gear. Nothing should be Mythic raid item level. First of all, would make it easier to squish item levels. You don't need LFR, but whatever. And honestly, LFR can probably just be like story or quest stuff. You don't need gear from LFR. Fuck it. Just do it for story. Like, you honestly will get gear faster if you do normal raid than if you do LFR. Like, that's LFR per wing. You're getting on average one item. That LFR can, like, the one wing can take you over an hour. You are more likely to do a Mythic Plus or two of them, which is, by the way, Mythic 0 and LFR is the same item level, just so you know. So a Mythic Plus 4, you can do 2 to 3 of them before you can do before you can finish an LFR, and you can probably get 2 to 3 items from the Mythic Plus. Let alone someone might even trade you. So yeah, there's absolutely no reason to do LFR. It's definitely not for gear. At most, story and quests. That's it. Normal and heroic should reward gear. Mythic should reward cool transmogs, advanced appearance of the gear you get from normal and heroic. Kind of how they do it with PvP. You have the regular set, then you have the set that's like fucking like the rival set, which is like, supposed to be a lot better looking, right? Same with the weapons. Make some glowy weapons or some shit like that in the Mythic raid. You don't need gear in Mythic raiding.
I
I
would
can't stress
definitely
this enough. You
suggest it
do
doesn't
not need
appear
it.
to be based on what's happening here. I also think it's something to do with, because I had an interesting thought when you talked about the mythic raiding guilds and the skill gap between players. There's also, I think, the interesting thing about whenever someone leaves from the top of a mythic guild,
Yeah.
not from the top mythic guild, but from a mythic guild, from a like Raise to War First guild, they replenish that rank, but they'll replenish that rank from Basically there'll be this group at the top that are like race to world first, and then there'll be this pool of players, maybe like a ladder if you think about it that way, of other Mythic Raiders. And every time someone leaves from this one, they don't go back down into the ladder of Mythic Raiders. They most likely quit the game.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would stay there, or they quit raiding and maybe stay in the game. But then they have to replenish from this pool of Mythic Raiders. And I think that Mythic raiding pool of like people good enough to join a Race to World First guild is getting smaller. But then those Race to World First guilds have the organization, they have they have the ability to support players so they can get better.
I don't agree. I do not agree that. The pool's getting smaller by default. People are leaving. I don't think the pool's getting smaller in terms of skill. There are plenty of players who can be world first raiders. Like the individual skill of the players at the top one is not as important as the amount of effort they put into having multiple specs and multiple classes. Many of the world first raiders, it's not like they're parsing 100s or like 95s even. They're parsing lower, but they're doing the mechanics. They're doing the mechanics efficiently while dealing DPS, and that is really the most important thing for mythic raiding. That and like figuring out mechanics fast enough. The honesty, the weak auras can't do it for you, right? Like the skill, in my opinion, of an individual world first mythic raider is not as great as Matt here is saying. Almost any raider that manages to get not even cutting edge, like 2 wings down of a mythic tier is probably good enough to do mythic raid. And the reason I'm saying not everyone, but like most of them, because you always have the guy that you carry and that you hope is not getting bad RNGs. But let's say like this: from my experience of mythic raiding, there were at least, I would say, 10 people that if they put in the effort and they actually cared about the game and not just like, whatever, we're doing it for fun, whatever, and like they don't read guides and stuff, if they took every fight seriously and like look at guides, look at everything that's like the boss does, understanding the class better because sometimes they're on alt and whatever, like they just switch classes. If they took that seriously, they easily had the skill to be world first raiders. But it's like it's not worth to be at that level. It's not worth to put that effort because out of the 20 people, you're the only one who's going to do that.
It's that kind of thing where they kind of pull people up from this pool, churn them out, not literally, but in terms of how people like just quit the game over time. And it feels like they're kind of like working their way through all these players, elevating them up to Race to World level, and then they're leaving. So it's like the Mythic Raider pool who aren't in that like elite are probably just getting smaller over time. Maybe I've made all that up. Who knows? But yeah,
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure. This is something that we
Maybe.
are planning to take a look at then with the guild clear rate of Sepulchre across all difficulties. So,
yeah.
as best as we can, we are going to try to provide you with some data and insights on this. Just help understand. Of course, in a way that does cover all the difficulties.
Yeah.
Our next thing then is the Mythic Plus Hero title has had some requirement changes.
Yes.
So instead of requiring a rating within the top 0.1% of their faction, it is now for the whole region, including both Horde and Alliance. So essentially, it's way more normalized. It won't be maybe easier in one faction because you could say, it could be easier in one faction, right? So they've essentially done that, I guess, just to increase overall fairness for some players, though.
So people already hated the IO scoring with good reason. I think IO scoring is something you kind of need, but at the same time, I don't think it should be a score. It should be like just a color or just a name. So for example, literally instead of having like 1980 IO score, which is I think it's blue right now, instead of having it that, just have it blue. So it's like everyone you're getting, like you can't differentiate between 1980 and 1930 1830 and 1850. Like, because you're like, well, this one's 1850 and this one's 1980. I might as well take the 1980, even though they're on the same technical level, right? They're on the blue level, and I think that's what the rating, the Mythic Plus rating should be. It should be a color that is designated from, let's say, 0 to 300 to like 299, 300 to 699, and 700 to 1000, something like that, right? It's like you have just color bases, so you can differentiate between someone who's like the beginning of blue and the middle of blue. It's like, I don't know, I feel like that would be easier for people to get into groups, and it still keeps a type of a rating for them.
Wherever this new 0.01% rating falls, it could be higher or lower than what it would have been previously for you. So maybe you'll have to go a bit harder.
And then what would you do about the, like, how would you know your actual rating? You don't. You know by clearing higher Mythic Pluses successfully, your rating will go up. That's all you need to know. And if you want to hunt to, like, let's say the hero title, you need to get to gold rating, a golden legendary color, which means if, let's say, you clear 24 on all the fucking Mythic Plus and you're still not gold, guess what? You gotta keep on going. That's that. It's like, if you really want it, that's all you gotta do.
Yeah. So what this really will do, and this is an assumption on my end, based on a very loose principle, but this will just push more Alliance players over to Horde, because if you're struggling to get
Why?
that, it's now
Oh,
harder.
okay, fair enough.
It now means that you have a better chance on Horde, because that's where better players are, that's where better groups are. Because obviously Horde's where, you know, all the Mythic raiders are.
Yeah.
So that just means Alliance is going to bleed out further because they don't get special treatment. So
Yeah, because the previous setting would be like, well, Alliance suck. I can just form a group, move all of us to Alliance, and just like get that 0.1% title there.
just hop over to Horde to try to do it instead. I mean, that's probably a very, very, very minor point, but that's just a fun thought. Just a fun thought of how that probably had a purpose, but not anymore. Also, it technically covers for them moving to cross faction.
Oh shit, that too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's like a requirement then, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go. We've worked it out.
Indeed.
The next thing then is the new Mythic Plus season, which actually is it's got one or two neat things. There's a little bit of narrative tied into it, which I think is just cool. It's not a massive amount, but it's basically the
Methods and
infiltrating
infiltrators
stuff and what you call them, Cartel Tal are just giving you like a bounty to hunt them down, and also some portals to take you to all the dungeons. And it's a small little touch, but it's just nice to see the gameplay mechanics be reflected via some in-game stuff.
Honestly, at this point, since you can teleport to dungeon, just make the Mythic Plus like queuable. Like, I mean, you know, in order to queue, you have to have the key or something like that. It's like, choose the dungeon, choose the plus, and here's the key that I have. I'm like, I don't know if they can do it with the system. I'm pretty sure they can, but it's like, save the extra step of the portal and just make it a queue, and that's it.
Story, which they don't get for free in this patch because they don't have an A plot in this patch, so they had to add just a little bit to make it work. I thought it was just a nice touch that they did that.
Yeah.
As for the actual affix itself, well, you basically choose a bounty that's a secondary stat. Okay, and whenever you defeat one of these dreadlords, and the dreadlords are like disguised mobs, so in mob packs, whenever you defeat them, you get 2% of that secondary stat. That of course stacks, and also when you defeat them, you get plus, is it like 6% per second for the next? You basically just get a HP and mana regen buff, which just means you can kind of keep a nice brisk base. So I think the healers will really appreciate that. So it seems like a nice little one. We'll have to see how it plays out, of course. But there's even things like they went to the detail of whenever they are defeated, one of the brokers actually comes in and imprisons them. So this actually adds to a little narrative of the brokers are going around imprisoning these guys. And also, they could have just had them die and you get a buff. But no, they went to a little bit extra effort to theme it up, and I think that's really that's appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is the kind of stuff I feel like the developers can do whenever they're kind of, I was about to say unhinged. That's not the right word for it. Unchained, when they kind of don't have all these considerations to.
The question is, and again, it's not a big deal, but in some dungeons, you know how you can mount. like let's say Mechagon and all that stuff. If you kill a Dreadlord while he's being imprisoned, are you still in combat? Because that can actually like be very annoying for the round if you can't mount. Because like mounting speed is taken into account for the counter.
To deal with, kind of, oh well, how does this fit into the A plot? How does this fit into all these plots? Whenever they are allowed to go, do whatever you think's cool, I think they probably have a lot more freedom to go. What if brokers come in and kidnap the Dreadlords, and then that would be kind of cool, and then you would go and get the bounty. Oh yeah, so you're kind of like involving yourself with these Shadowlands characters in ways that you didn't before. Like, yeah, fucking swell, great, fantastic.
Yeah, so that's what they actually do. They have a frontal cone to dodge. They have pools that put you to sleep.
Oh yes,
There'll
I
be some
love
weeks where
Lords
that'll
of
be fun.
Dread. Haha.
Vampire Claws, which heals an enemy for 250% of the damage dealt, and you can use some immunities to get around that.
Nice.
So there you go. It just seems like a nice little sort of themed up mechanic.
For sure.
And yeah, don't really think there's too much else to get into. Although it is nice. You have Gorgrond, Karazhan, and Mechacon portals, which is generally handy for doing this content. But of course, you'll have these portals even if you're not doing this content, which will be quite handy for getting around the world. So, all in all, good shit. Next, then, not much to say here, but it's just an indication of progress being made. So, the Season 4 Fated Raid loot tables are currently being updated. Some more work has happened there, so you can sort of see the item levels that we're going to be dealing with. Now, Dakor did have a few questions, like will there be a new round of legendaries?
Hope not.
How will those work?
I really hope not.
Just give us an item to click it and upgrade them,
Yeah.
or something very simple that just kind of is like out of the way, done. I think that's probably the easiest way to get around it.
For sure.
Oh yeah, and then also we've had the same set of consumables the whole time, which is
Probably,
a bit odd.
yeah, probably an
That's-
economic thing. Or actually, no, it's obvious what that is. They've just said all the crafting people and professions people are working on the new crafting system for Dragonflight instead of implementing new tiers and like balancing new
Sure.
consumables and stuff. So I imagine that's the answer. Just, do we need more? No.
That's the PR answer. Doesn't mean that's
Go work on
actually the
next thing.
answer.
Yeah.
All right, good video as always. I love how like they sit for like 4 or 5 hours talk about random shit. I mean, man, the stuff they talk about, like overall, like the 4 hours, like I can't sit through it, or like however long it is. And it's like I'm really glad they're doing the Bellular clips, but it's like just the amount of work they put into it. Like they have all these like slideshows and whatever, like the research. Like, man, respect Bellular. That's a lot of fucking work. All right, on to the next one.